Satisfaction. We also see the attitude of anger. And can I say this? That attitude dominates the chapter. You'll notice it comes up several times. Watch this, first of all, in verse 1, the Bible says, and it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was very angry, right? And I told you earlier that it was God showing mercy back in Jonah chapter 3, verse 10. Because Jonah wanted Nineveh destroyed, God showed him mercy, and it made him mad, right? But notice this, it's Jonah's anger that dominates the chapter. Look down in verse number 4. The Bible says this, then said the Lord, doest thou well to be angry? God challenges him about his attitude, his anger that's involved. But then in verse number 9, you got to see this with your own eyes. This is amazing. The Bible says again in verse 9, he challenges him again on his anger. And the Bible says, and God said to Jonah, doest thou well to be angry for the gourd? So first of all, he's angry about the city, about them having mercy. Then secondarily, God give him some mercy, put a gourd over him to shade him because of the hot sun. It dried up the next day because God ain't going to let him stay there because he's in a bad shape. And he gets angry about the gourd drying up. And God says, are you right to be angry about the gourd? Watch the way he answers it. And he said, I do well to be angry, even unto death. Smart mouth. I mean, if you was God, wouldn't you kill him right there? Just burn him up on the spot, right? It just goes to show you, man, when you get mad, you're not rational. When you have the attitude of anger going on in your life, anger is a toxic attitude and even brings forth an arrogant spirit here. And can I say this? Anger is so very dangerous and destructive when it comes to being your attitude that the Bible gives implicit instructions on it. First thing we learn about anger is this right here. In verse number 2 of this chapter, we learn that God is slow to get it. Notice what Jonah said about him when he's giving his testimony there. He said, therefore I fled, verse 2, before unto Tarshish, for I knew that thou art a gracious God and merciful. Watch what he says here, slow to anger. You know why Jonah knew God was slow to anger? Because God was slow to get angry with him. He said, I've been a recipient of your slow anger. I mean, if I were you, Jonah's probably even thinking, I would have killed me. But you were slow to anger, so I knew you'd be slow to anger with him, and I'm mad about that. You know, good for me, not for thee. That's the way he lived, okay? And so he's angry here. And can I say this right here? One of the greatest things I can have as far as how we manage our anger is to have a real long fuse. If you get angry easily, you're going to make some mistakes. I'll base that on what the Bible says. Over in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 17, here's what the book of Proverbs says about anger and whenever it happens fast. He that is soon angry dealeth foolishly. Quick temper will get you in trouble. Coming from a man that had one. I had a quick temper most of my life. And can I tell you this? It always got me in trouble. You say, well, preacher, how in the world do you get victory over a quick temper? I'll tell you how God gave me victory over a quick temper. He kept putting me in situation after situation after situation to test it. Did you get that? You know, it wasn't one of them little, oh, would you take it away? And he just took it away. No, that's too easy. You don't learn like that. So what God done is God just kept giving me circumstance after circumstance, and you just get tested and tested and tested, and God's like, I'm going to break this out of you. By putting me in the ministry and knowing that if I lose my temper, I could also be disqualified. God said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to fix this problem, big boy. I'm going to put you in circumstance and situation repetitively. And I'm going to let you get to the place where you learn how to control that and not let it control you. And so now, a little older, here's what I know. It's not dead. Complete victory is not won because my body is yet to be glorified. That happens after I die. However, I know enough about it now that I should not be a slave to it anymore. Does that make sense? But it says when it comes to anger as an attitude, we're a whole lot better off to have a long fuse. It's very powerful, anger is. And here's why. Because if you are an angry person and you consistently have the attitude of anger, do you realize it will cause your life to be filled with conflict and drama? Here's what the Bible says about it in Proverbs 15:18. A wrathful man stirreth up strife, but he that is slow to anger appeaseth strife.